Education Minister Desmond Lee is cautioning against cognitive offloading, even as students and teachers are being encouraged to use AI learning tools. Mr. Lee says to prevent relying on AI to do the thinking, it is important that students remain grounded in fundamentals such as critical thinking.
Well, you think about it, AI is going to present a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of disruption. So our aim is really to make sure that the next generation is ready for such a world. And so there are 4 learns. If you think about it, we first want to teach our children what is AI. Learn what AI is, what its risks are, what it can do. Then learn how to use AI, because at some point they need to learn how to use the tools in order to operate in different industries that are AI infused. Third is learn with AI. We want our students and we also want our teachers to use AI tools to augment learning and to avoid what we call cognitive offloading. That means they let the AI do the thinking for them, and while they get the product, they don't actually learn. And the most important for our children really is to learn beyond AI. Not just to learn how to use AI, but learn how to be masters of AI and make sure that we exercise our moral judgment when these tools create endless possibilities. So for a child, you say maybe primary 1 to primary 3, very light touch, very light supervised use of technology, including AI, because at that age, children learn best through tactile, touch, feel, experiment, explore, go outdoors, go for learning journeys. But from primary 4 onwards, we start to teach them how to use AI, again, with lots of supervision, because you want them to understand what AI can be used for. We want to use AI to augment their learning. For example, SLS, Student Learning Space, we put in AI tools to help them learn the way they would learn if a teacher was sitting next to them. And then, of course, in secondary school, as they become more independent and have a personal learning device, we want our secondary school students to learn how to use AI independently while watching out for risks such as I mentioned, cognitive offloading, where they let the machine think for them. But when they go to the institutes of higher learning, when they go to ITE, Polytechnic, University, the link between industry and the institutes of higher learning will ensure that AI tools are brought into subject matter specific context for them to learn.
You mentioned cognitive offloading a couple of times, and that really is a very important concern. How do we ensure then that the children are still building strong fundamentals in things like, critical thinking, literacy, numeracy, while that AI push is going on?
So some people say, well, AI can do all the knowledge gathering for you, can even do the thinking for you. Why do you need to have foundational knowledge? On the contrary, I think with the potential of AI being so significant, all the more we need to ground our children and students in strong fundamentals and foundations, and most importantly, learn how to synthesize information, to have inventive thinking, adaptive thinking, and critical thinking, and to be able to exercise that moral conscience and exercise that intellectual muscle.
Minister, why is the Gifted Education Program being phased out?
Well, this was announced by Prime Minister at National Day Rally in 2024. It comes at a time where, with more information and knowledge and research, we recognize that children develop strengths and talents over time. And therefore, we move away from a system where we expect the child to be almost all-rounded gifted, to one where we look at each child and see the strengths and talents they have in one or more dimensions and give them the opportunity to be stretched. And so with this approach, we will have both school-based and center-based approaches. So in our schools, the students can attend further enrichment outside the curriculum. There will be teachers who will help them to, exercise their intellectual muscle. So that will move from some 7% of today's cohort in the school to 10%, allowing more children to benefit. And for a small group who can be further stretched, they will go to centers in schools nearby in order for them to do math, science, or English enrichment that is dealing from the curriculum, but allows them to explore more deeply and push their boundaries.
And some might say, though, that the students in the Refresh program that are going to these centres, then they might then have to have extra pressure, to do these advanced learnings and courses. What would you say to that? How is that different from the gifted program?
Well, unlike the gifted program, you see, the gifted program, there's only one entry point. Primary 3, take the 2-stage test, and then primary 4, you start. You must change school. With this approach, you stay in your current school, whether you do school-based or you do school-based but centre-based. And there's porosity. Rather than just the primary 3 make or break, now primary 4, primary 5, end of each semester, with more than one touch point, the teacher can have teacher observation, student work, attitude, interest, talent and creativity. We can then have a more holistic assessment whether a child is ready. And the modules at the centre-based are optional, including the school holiday-based multidisciplinary modules.
Now, MOE is also expanding support for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, especially working quite closely with Comlink Plus.
Yes.
How do you ensure that this support is coordinated and not fragmented or even repeated in some instances?
Yeah, so we need to do it at 2 levels. One is within the school and one is across society. So in school, you're going to put in more resources in terms of funding and additional manpower to help schools better support children from less well-off backgrounds. So from 100 schools now, we're going to expand it to 157 schools, and we're going to integrate support more significantly within the schools. But outside the school, we will collaborate with the Comlink Alliance Working Group, which is an alliance comprising the SSO, the Family Service Centre, with schools and other social service agencies and community partners. And with data sharing through One Client View, through coordination, through Case Connect, through a family coach for each Comlink Plus family, working with the schools, working with the social service agencies to coordinate support around the needs of the family and helping the families achieve their aspirations.
You mentioned SPED schools earlier, so MOE is also significantly expanding its SPED capacity, especially for students with autism spectrum disorder or even intellectual disabilities. Why is there a need to expand at this scale right now? And what are the tangible outcomes you're looking for when it comes to whether it's integration, society, or even employability?
Yes. So there is a waiting time now for admission to SPED schools, particularly for students with autism spectrum and intellectual disability, so ASD-ID. And we plan to expand capacity by working with social service agencies. We will do so by establishing new campuses, expanding existing capacity in schools, and also working with the SSAs to build more SPED schools. So by the early 2030s, we will be able to support about 30% more students. So currently 9,000, we will be able to support 12,000 students. And from 26 SPED schools today, we aim to reach 30 SPED schools. Of course, in terms of outcomes, with more specific support for intellectual development, for skills, as well as executive function, we hope the students will be better able to live and work independently and have executive function to carry on through life.